I think it's important for us to realize that we can write our own story, however big or small or incredible or basic that ends up being. It's yours and it's your choice. We are Megan and
Ben
Poirier, and we live in this bus. Where do we live? That's a good question. Part of the year we're in New Hampshire in the White Mountains where we met because summer in New England is wonderful. And then for the rest of the year we travel around the United States.
So we've been on the road for 11 months. We have traveled to over 30 states and about 13 to 14,000 miles.
So our morning routine is really important to us. It keeps things consistent wherever we travel.
I cannot wait for coffee. I don't know where my feet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have a love-hate with the cold because I love starting a fire. It's like my favorite morning ritual. But I also love it when it's warm outside and I don't have to do that. And I have this really cool little chopping block that I made so I don't damage the floor, and the bottom's got a big thick piece of felt on it. And I take my hatchet, which I also made, and I gotta chop some thinner pieces.
We've known each other since we were 14, so we've known each other for 15 years, and we've been married for 5 years. You think you know a lot about a person even after that amount of time, but there's always something new to learn. To us, and everyone feels differently about it, but to us, student loan debt, it felt like a burden. It felt like something we needed to get rid of in order to start our lives fresh. Fall of 2013, we really started making a commitment to change our lifestyle and pursue all of these different financial health goals. We were interested in buying a house, went so far as to be under contract, and realized toward the end of it, looking at our current debt, which was about $100,000 of student loan and vehicle debt at that time, and just felt completely overwhelmed in that moment, thinking, is this really the right thing to do? Are we really ready to add on another $200,000 to this burden? So instead, we decided we're gonna do it our own way. We were living pretty normally. We had a budget to a point, but we weren't really active in our financial trajectory until that time. We developed kind of our own self-imposed plan to get out of debt as quickly as we could. So that involved assessing our lifestyle, looking at where our money was going, and changing as many things that were within our control as humanly possible, which we found were way more than we thought. You think I make X number of dollars, this is how much debt I have. The papers say that it's going to take 15 years, so that's how long it'll take me to pay off my debt. But there's so many little things in your lifestyle, your day-to-day, that add up to huge amounts of change. It kind of progressed into a game where we felt like the less we spent, the more we were making. We were winning. It was like this.
It's like getting a raise without having to ask for a raise, and you get a lot more saving than you do trying to get an extra dollar from your place of work.
So we did different experiments, like we stopped drinking for 1.5 years because alcohol is expensive. And we found out, I really like not drinking because I'm able to go hiking more and go running more and I feel better. Like, this is great. And then that sparked, let's eat better, let's not go out to eat. And then we became better cooks out of it. So it just snowballed and evolved into different experimentations. Every bonus, every extra dollar we had, really, I would call and make extra payments on our student loans, and it broke my heart every time, but that's what you have to do. We were able to pay off a huge amount of debt in 3.5 years.
It was sort of a cage having that debt for us. where we couldn't take the next step. We hadn't thought about, going tiny until sort of the end of paying off our debt because we were so focused on the task at hand. And then when we finally wiped out the debt, we're like, oh,
What do we do now?
we're free. Well, what do we do with this freedom? We started playing with the idea because we had thought about getting into a house.
Part of our hang up with not wanting to get into a mortgage and buy a home was because we don't really know if we want to live in New England. So we were attracted to the idea that it would be mobile.
So we thought about the tiny home or maybe an off-grid cabin or taking an old canned ham RV and cleaning it up and traveling the country. So we went on Craigslist and there was the bus.
When we first saw it and bought it, it was, have you seen old pictures? It's terrifying.
I mean, it was a prison bus. There's a sticker on the back that says, "If lost, call the police."
Yeah. The front of it just said Sheriff's Department. It was all like chipped and tattered and worn looking.
And for me, I was like, that's the one. I want that. It looks scary. It's got bars on the windows. It has so much potential to be something cool. When I drove it home, I had never driven a bus. Oh, do we turn heads?
Just laughing the entire time watching everyone.
What is that?
We had just finished, basically reinventing our lifestyle completely from the ground up. We had that as a foundation. So we wanted to embark on another challenge together. We had really great jobs, but they weren't necessarily jobs that we deliberately chose. They served a purpose. So we made a choice in that moment. Okay, we could either try to find another job and completely start over as we pay off this debt, or we could do everything within our power to make our current jobs rock. And for the following 3 years, that's exactly what we did.
All right, so first, make sure the door is locked so it doesn't swing open. Make sure I got my driving sunglasses. So we have a little ritual before we start driving, for luck. We found this mule shoe in the Grand Canyon. So before we start driving, we both touch it like this.
The sound's important.
We're driving. Away we go.
I did kind of hide certain parts of my maybe goofier personality before.
But when you can let that side out that you never allowed in the workplace, we found even more success in our job. We're like, oh, well,
Yes.
we're leaving, but...
We got a lot closer in those last 6 months because we knew that was all there was, and we left with really great relationships. It was almost as if we hit the reset button. It took us many months to get used to the fact that that wasn't our identity anymore. Like, I wasn't a marketing manager. Ben wasn't a general manager of a reclaimed lumber company. Who were we? What were we now? Like, we live in a bus.
Identity crisis.
It was a bit of an identity crisis, it was. But then you have to just remind yourself, okay, we chose to be here, just like we transformed our past situation into something bright and beautiful. Why can't we do the same with this new opportunity? So.
And it was a reminder that we're not our careers. We're a lot more than that. We have passions and ambitions, and career's part of it, You always get that question in a conversation, well, what do you do? Well, I do a lot of things.
Yeah.
What do I do for work? Well, that's another story, but.
Now that question takes a little bit longer to answer.
We ask ourselves what's next often, because this is a journey of self-discovery. So sometimes we're like looking for the best city in the country to live in, and other times we're looking like, oh, well, what could we do for a career next? And
we really are genuinely trying to dig and explore location-wise because we don't know where we want to lay down roots yet.
Here we are, driving across country and finding ourselves in places that we wouldn't normally expect. There's this gorgeous farmland these really open spaces, not to mention the bus loves driving on the flat Iowa roads.
Yeah. Our MPG is through the roof.
Oh yeah, we're getting like 11 miles per gallon.
We allow ourselves to go down different lines of thinking very often.
Yeah, that's the freedom right there.
That's the freedom,
You know,
yeah.
it allows us to try something out, and when it doesn't feel right, back off and try something else.
It's only been 3 weeks, this trip, and we just said it the other day. Ben, we almost didn't go on this trip. Could you imagine if we hadn't have gone on this trip? We've already met so many great people, and also realized that's one of our favorite parts.
It's like we're back to school, and the U.S. is the college campus, and we're just like learning from every state, every person, you know. This is our semester abroad.
We're here,
All right, we're here.
Hello.
Come aboard.
Well, hello
You must be
there.
Carl.
I am.
I'm Ben.
Well, this is a lovely space.
Oh, thank you.
What gave you the idea of starting this? How did you decide, the school bus would be a good idea?
I know, right? That's
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
It didn't look like this when we bought
I bet it didn't. I
you.
can see 100 ideas right there.
Typically in an RV, you have to have a black tank for your sewage to go into, but we decided to get a composting toilet instead, and it hides in this little cabinet here.
This door opens up. You just climb on in, and it works great.
And it has a fan that vents to the outside that's powered by our solar.
This is our shower. This cap comes off here. I made this out of reclaimed southern yellow pine, and it's really, really, really sappy. And then I coated the whole thing in epoxy, so there's no seams, leaks, or anything. You can actually fill it right up and take a bath if you want. And if we're gonna take a shower, we have a little curtain that we store. You can use magnets to put it to the ceiling, and you can stand and take a shower. And typically, it's a pretty quick thing. We try to conserve as much water as possible. This is just an exterior light socket with rubber around it. This is the light switch for all of the lights here for the sconces. And it's on a dimmer. I used to manage a reclaimed lumber company, so I have this like insatiable desire to use up every little piece and recycle everything that I can find. So most of what you see in here is recycled. The blue beadboard was reclaimed out of a building in Portland, Maine, and it was out of tens of thousands of square feet of wood, and I picked out one by one I'd see a blue piece and I'd pick it out and be like, oh, I'm gonna save that, because it's Meg's favorite color.
My favorite color,
Well,
if you haven't noticed.
Small housing. It's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Even if you wind up in a great McMansion later on, it really helps. You're much better off to have the experience.
I think it brings us closer to all the systems involved in our usage of electricity and water. That's been a really neat thing that this tiny space has shown us.
Well, I'd like to welcome you to Iowa. I've spent most of my 80 years here. When I was a child, I cultivated corn here with a team of horses, barefoot.
Did you build the bridge yourself?
Yes, it's entirely built with my hands and no hydraulics. Wow! The railroad ties came out of a local railway that was taken out for a bicycle trailer. I see some similarities between your bus house project and this project. It's the idea of reusing something. The bus is being reused, and a lot of what you showed me inside is being reused. I don't think as a culture we can survive if we don't find ways to stop simply taking it out of the ground and then throwing it away. The throughput is too fast, too fast. By doing it as you did, without the mortgage, you have much more freedom than you do otherwise. You can design what you want, and you can use the materials that you want.
Yeah.
And that, in the end, creates a lot of freedom that you don't have, if your lender is to be satisfied.
So we've gained a lot of skills that we never had before. You know, I didn't know how to do any of this when I started, and along the way, you know, some people said to us like, well, why don't you just hire someone to build it for you? If you have somebody build it for you, you don't get the skills that you have forever.
I do think it's more fun to write your own story, but it's also a lot harder. I think we could have continued on the path that we were on prior to living in this bus full time very easily. It would have been quite comfortable and secure. However, I don't think we would have felt things as deeply as we have in the past year and felt as confident in ourselves. We've had a lot of fun writing our own story because the risk is less than we thought.
And the rewards, I think, are greater. Because you're doing something that speaks to you. If you're writing your own story, you're following your heart, you're following your passion. So, God, only good things can come out of that, right? You know, even when you fail, you're only learning, and you're learning about something that you love.
Fueling up?
Fueling up the old-fashioned way.
This experience has brought us closer as a couple. You think you know someone after 15 years of, you know, knowing them and 5 years of marriage, but when you put that into 165 square feet and tell it to go around the country, you know, and not really know where you're going to stay on some nights, it adds this whole level of opportunity there for growth and change and challenge. And I also feel as though we've been able to be better friends this year. Does that sound weird? But
no, that's true.
We've reconnected with people and connected with people on a deeper level than we were able to before. Maybe our life is just more stripped down where we just think about those things more consciously.
Out of all this traveling, there isn't a single place I can feel connected with except for the people that I love.
I would agree with that.
And that's where home is.
Good morning. And the bus has kind of become our sense of home in a way. We have the same bed to sleep in every night, whether we're in Iowa or California or Maine. Hello! We're on top of a rock, and the bus is way down there.
The joy of traveling is the things that you don't expect to find. Yeah, we can go to Grand Canyon and we can see these really amazing places, just Niagara Falls and all that kind of wonderful stuff, and they're great. But when you meet amazing people, you know, like today, like meeting Carl, like that's something you never expect. Or stopping at a donut shop that just blows your mind. And then of course, like you kind of get lost on the road and you see on the map a sign for something a little weird, like, oh, Fossil Falls, what's that? And you go check it out and it's just like, I can't believe this exists in nature, wow. And I would have never checked it out if we haven't gotten lost.
What this lifestyle has taught me so far is similar in that the unexpected results emotionally for me have been remarkable. I have felt things more intensely this year than I ever have in my entire life. Perhaps because I was more distracted before. I have cried more and laughed more this year than I ever thought. I've had, just deep emotional discoveries about myself that I'm like, why is this happening? What is this bus, doing to me?
It sort of represents freedom for us.
Our life is so stripped down to simple day-to-day that the happy moments seem even happier.